So this is where it takes us to star stepping, because star stepping is essentially one step further. And instead of a performance, like a theatrical performance, it's basically saying we are going to do moves here on this earth so that we can deal with the stars above us, right? So there's a lot of examples of star stepping, right? Different pattern. Essentially, what you're doing is you're walking in different patterns in order to invoke the pattern of the specific constellations that you want to invoke over you. It's also can be done with the bagua, so you can walk the bagua and all that. But I like this quote where, like, because this should resonate with anybody who does Tai Chi. My hidden energy flows like silk, right? This idea, you know, silk reeling, energy flowing like silk. That's a metaphor that we see in Tai Chi constantly. So, but the important thing to remember here is that the idea of walking in a specific pattern has power, right? That the pattern that you're stepping in is resonant with something else. In this particular case, in terms of star stepping, it's resonant with the stars, because the stars themselves are spirits. But not only that, but the gate of heaven is up in the stars. The North Star, which is something we'll come back to, the North Star is the pivot. It's the axis of the entire universe, the axis of the world. So when you do star stepping, what you're really doing is you're trying to integrate yourself with the patterns and the forces of the universe, right? So here, the one thing that I think is important to remember is two things. The idea that patterns can be mimicked and mirrored. So the pattern that you follow invokes the pattern that you're invoking, right? Mimics the pattern. So you're creating a mirror image. But also that movement is fundamental, right? Because I think we all have this idea, you know, we're going to meditate and we're going to be still, and that's the way that you get, you know, spiritual and enlightenment and all that kind of stuff. But here, the idea is completely the opposite. The idea here is that we're going to move through space, and it's by moving through space that we generate the energies that are then echoed in the heavens, right? And so that's a really important idea, because it's very much, I think, a Western idea that, you know, of stillness as kind of somehow spiritually better than movement. But here it's the reverse. The movement is what's important. So again, you can do it with the bagua, so it doesn't have to be stars, but this whole idea of stepping in a pattern to invoke something. And it can get very complicated. So this is one of the star patterns and all that. So that you would literally walk all of this, naming the stars as you walk through, so that every time every step that you take would be a calling out of the star that you're stepping towards, but also an invocation for whatever you wanted to happen, right? And I think, so this is an important little quote. In order to create basically, in order to make something invisible happen, you have to make it visible and real in your own life. If you want to create something that is visible, you have to create something invisible for yourself in order to manifest it. And that's, again, it's this idea of mirroring the world around you, right? So you mirror the stars by making physical their pattern on the earth itself. So one of the interesting details that starts to seep in through all this practice is the dark feminine. And here, dark, not as bad or witches. This is very much yin and yang, right? Yin is the feminine, but it's also the dark. It's the productive. So this idea that there's the bright stars that you see that are yang, but there's also there's a yin counterpart to these stars. And in this case, right, it's the 9 empresses of the great yin are, as you can see, are associated with the condition of Wu Wei, which is something that will come back in Tai Chi all the time, right? This idea of a non-action, so doing, you do nothing, but you achieve everything. So we have already here the hint that not only are we creating patterns and all that kind of stuff, but we're connecting to different energies that are above us. Some of yin, some of yang. These particular 9 imprints of the Great Yin are connected to the Big Dipper, and the Big Dipper is important because it actually points towards the North Star. So the Big Dipper is considered part of the one of the most important constellations. So the idea that there's a Big Dipper above us, which is connected. So the Yang aspect of the Big Dipper is connected to actually to the middle Dantian, right? So this is where the star influences come into our body and affect us energetically and physically. And the actual stars, the actual constellation is echoed in the middle Dantian. The yin, these dark stars are connected to the upper Dantian. So they're actually more connected to the spirit than the stars themselves. And so again, this is where we start having an echo where we're starting to split between yin and yang, masculine and feminine. So the masculine stars that are above us are having a direct effect on our physical bodies and on the material world. These dark hidden stars have an effect on our spiritual being. So again, you want to, even as you're doing this kind of the stepping and these rituals, already there's a split where you start going, okay, which aspect of you is connecting to them? Is it just your physical, your energetic body is connecting to the stars above, or is it your spiritual body which is connected to the stars above, but in a slightly different way, right? So it gets very complicated. But again, that's why Tai Chi and all of this is quite weird. and if it gets just kind of narrowed down to just a few things, then you're missing out on all the stuff that connects us to the stars, right? Because again, the Big Dipper is a goddess, right? Again, we have this influence of the feminine coming in, the dark, the internal is coming in as actually becoming a little more important, which makes sense if you know the theory of yin and yang. Yin generates yang. So here we have it shown here. So we have these kind of goddesses above us. So what I wanted to do is very quickly show you like how the 13 postures themselves can express some of these ideas, that the 13 postures carry within them encoded some of these ideas of connection with this, well, not necessarily with the stars in this particular case, but connection with other forces and other different rituals. Let me see if I can show you. So 13 postures, I'm going to do this again quick, but notice that we start, so those of you who already know the Michuan cell, this is fine, but we start feet together, nice line. So here the idea is to connect crown of the head to the heavens, feet are connected to the ground. But notice that when we start, right, we come here and then we stand up, sit down, open here. Even that very beginning, if you remember your Tao Te Ching, first is the 1, then the 2, then the 3, and then the 10,000 things. So there's the 1, now the separation, right to left, separation, top to bottom. So already here we're reenacting the beginning of the universe, right? And it's incredibly simple, but just the idea of going from the 1 to the 2. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that, but already now you're connecting to the idea of splitting energies, right? And then we move. Now, here it gets a little more complicated. So the moves are here, right? And we're going to go to the 4 corners. So already that gives you a hint. We're now dealing with the 4 corners of the world, the 4 horizons, because we know that the earth is square and that the heavens are circular. So just by doing this, right, just by moving to the 4 corners, I'm invoking the earth. I'm now drawing a map. I'm saying now this is about the earth. So the Neo-Confucian idea of the beginning of the universe, it's, first there's the 1, the Wuji, then the Taiji, and then the 3, and then the 10,000 things. The more complicated and older story is that, yes, there was first the Wuji, the oneness, and then the Taiji, yin and yang separate. But after that, the 3 is when you have the creation of the world itself. And it's the 3 because you have the waters of the earth, you have the heavens, and in between you have the first man, the first hero. Sometimes it's you, sometimes it's you as in why you, not you. But there's a person, a hero, who essentially witnesses Earth, and it's covered in water. And then the next thing that they do is they bring up mountains, bring up the Earth. And so here we have at the beginning, water. You do that on 4 sides. You have the water sign, right? On 4 corners. And then you do the second section. And the section is here, right? And you can see that now suddenly we are rising things up. And so we do that to the 4 corners. So there's the 13 postures here is telling us, right, about these different energies and the story of the beginning of the universe. And then after that, we go to the diagonals and we do essentially the Bagua, because we do 8 moves, each move being connected to one of the symbols of the Bagua. So we have in the 13 postures a reenactment of the creation of the universe. But not only that, and so again, I'm going very quickly and I'm not going through the, right, but we have boom, boom, we come here. So this is literally the Bagua and it's done to the diagonals. Boom. But then we close. And then we come here, so back facing the same direction that we started. And then we do something called carry the tiger, return to the mountain. We come here and then back to here. And notice that now we've brought all of this energy that we created, bring it back into unity. Now, carry the tiger, return to the mountain. What does that mean? Well, first of all, we know that the tiger is the symbol of the West. Right. So if we carry the tiger, if we take that as a hint that we should be facing west as we do this, then we can ask ourselves, what's the mountain? Well, the mountain in the west is the mountain that has the Queen of the West. The mountain in the west, where the Queen of the West lives, is where there's all the Taoist immortals go to visit, because this is where you have, you know, the garden with that grows the peaches of immortality. So we have here at the very end a hint, right, that all of this, well, everything I've just done should be done facing west. You start facing west, and at the end you finish by facing west. You carry the tiger, and then you return to the mountain. So you return to the mountain of the Taoist immortals. So that's a very, very quick overview of how the 13 postures themselves are more than just a sequence of movements, but they embody, because of the symbolism that they use, they embody a ritualistic aspect. It's essentially a prayer to the Queen of the West, or it finishes with a prayer to the Queen of the West, right? So as you go through the form, you embody the primal energies, of earth and water. You start with water, the raising of the earth, and then of the Bagua. And then you close it by facing west, facing the mountain of the immortal queen. I mean, so that's a simple and a very rushed example of how our Tai Chi practice itself can be a prayer in that sense, or can be a way of organizing yourselves towards a spiritual being. Yeah. Also, the central idea of Taoism, which is everything comes from a single point, divides, creates chaos. But then the process that we're following as Tai Chi practitioners is to integrate this whole chaos and realize that, oh wait, it's actually built out of smaller elements, and then we can reconnect to the central energy that is actually generated all of this, right? So this idea that we go from still to chaos and back to stillness, that is Taoist cosmology. That is the core idea that is underlying all of Tai Chi and Taoism and all the energy, all the stuff that we do.